Neymar left for Barcelona, a controversial move after it was revealed the team paid millions to Neymar's parents. He's now signed to a 5-year, $74 million deal.
Besides being considered one of the best soccer players in the world, Neymar Jr. is a tycoon who has made a lot of money throughout his career.
A penthouse in Dubai, inside the Bugatti Tower, reported at more than $50 million. A mansion outside Rio de Janeiro, with its own helipad, a private lake, and a full-size football pitch in the backyard. A sports agency founded when he was still a teenager. An investment fund with stakes in technology and gaming. And, years before any of that, a contract signed on a paper napkin because the family could not afford anything more formal. Most of the world knows the man who scored the goals. Almost no one tells the story of the family that quietly built the company around him. And when you actually add the holdings up, the figure is reported almost everywhere incorrectly. This is a study of black wealth, power, and legacy, told the way it is rarely told. Not the gossip, not the highlight reel, the ownership underneath it. And here is the promise. You have heard the football story 1,000 times. You have not heard the family story, the one where a father with a broken career decided his son's name would be an asset, the household controlled, rather than a paycheck the club controlled. If that is the kind of blueprint you want more of, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the rest of this is the part the headlines skip. The Jardim Gloria Blueprint. He was born on February 5, 1992, in Mogi das Cruzes, in the state of São Paulo. But the story does not really start there. It starts a short drive away, in a coastal city called Praia Grande, in a working-class neighborhood named Jardim Gloria, where the family landed when money was scarce and the future was anything but guaranteed. The father, Neymar Santos Sr., had been a footballer himself, a man who knew the lower divisions and knew, more painfully, how quickly a playing career can end before it ever pays off. That experience became the foundation of everything that followed. He joined the youth ranks of Santos as a boy, and the family reorganized its entire life around the commute, the training, and the belief that the talent was real. The father became more than a parent. He became the first manager, the first negotiator, the first protector of an asset the rest of the world had not noticed yet. Because the father had watched fame fail to convert into anything lasting, he treated his son's talent differently from the start. The most famous artifact of those early years is almost a parable. When the boy signed his first deal with Santos Futebol Clube, the agreement was reportedly written out on a napkin because the family's circumstances left no room for ceremony. A napkin. That is where the empire begins, not in a boardroom, but in a household that had nothing except a rare gift and a father determined not to waste it the way his own chance had been wasted. And here is the thesis planted right at the root, the idea the whole story keeps proving. Fame depreciates, ownership compounds, a salary arrives and disappears, a career peaks and declines. But a structure, a company, a set of assets that belong to the family, those keep working long after the legs slow down. The father understood this before the son had played a single professional minute. Therefore, the plan was never simply to produce a great player. The plan was to build a business with the player at the center of it. The foundation years. The conventional money came first, and it came fast. After breaking through at Santos and winning the biggest honors in South American club football, the young forward made the move every Brazilian prodigy dreams of. In 2013, he transferred to FC Barcelona for a fee reported around 57 million euros, joining a forward line alongside Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez that would terrorize Europe. The trophies followed. So did the global recognition. By any normal standard, the family had already won. Look closer at what he actually was before Europe. At Santos, he was not a prospect. He was the best young player on the continent. He won the Copa Libertadores in 2011, the most prestigious club trophy in South America. That same year, he took the Puskás Award for the finest goal in world football and was named the South American Footballer of the Year. By 2013, he was good enough that Barcelona built a forward line around him. And in 2016, on home soil, He captained Brazil to its first ever Olympic gold medal in men's football, scoring the decisive penalty in Rio de Janeiro. Each of those moments did two things at once. It raised the player, and it raised the price of the brand the family already owned. But notice the language. This was the foundation. It was never the structure. A transfer fee enriches the selling club. A salary, however enormous, is still income, and income is the most fragile form of wealth there is, because it stops the moment you do. The father knew that the European wages, the bonuses, the appearance money, all of it were raw material. Therefore, the real work was not earning the money. The real work was deciding what the money would become. And that decision is where most athletes, in every country, quietly lose the plot. They confuse a large salary with a large fortune. The Da Silva Santos household never made that mistake. The wages were poured into something the family would own outright. The pivot to ownership. Here is the heart of it. Back in 2006, years before the world transfer record, the family founded a company called NR Sports. On the surface, it is described as a sports marketing and management agency. In practice, it is the engine room of the entire fortune, and it is run by the father. NR Sports does not just collect endorsement checks. It controls the image rights, the commercial partnerships, the licensing, the very machinery of the brand. In football, image rights are frequently the most valuable thing a star possesses, often worth more over a lifetime than the on-field salary itself. Most players hand that machinery to their clubs or to outside agents. This family kept it in-house. That single structural choice changes everything. When a brand wants the face, it does not negotiate with a club. It negotiates with the family company. When a campaign is built, the family company takes its position in the deal. The athlete becomes, in effect, the lead product of a firm his own household owns and operates. Therefore, every spotlight, every viral moment, every tournament feeds an asset the family controls rather than rents. And the spotlight got enormous. In 2017 came the move that rewrote football economics, a transfer to Paris Saint-Germain for €222 million, the most expensive transfer in the history of the sport, a record that still stands. The Eiffel Tower itself lit up to welcome him. But for the purposes of this story, the headline number is almost a distraction. The transfer made the club poorer and the player more famous. What mattered to the family was that the fame, now at a planetary scale, flowed straight back into the company they already owned. The bigger the icon, the more valuable the machine. Consider how that record transfer actually worked, because the mechanics matter. Paris Saint-Germain did not haggle. They triggered a release clause, paying the full €222 million in one move to pry him out of Barcelona. A release clause is a number the player's side helps set, a fortress wall around the asset. When a buyer is willing to climb a wall that high, every future negotiation, every endorsement, every image rights deal resets to a new and higher floor. Therefore, the transfer did not just relocate a footballer, it revalued the entire family enterprise overnight, and the company that captured that new valuation was the one the father had built back in 2006. The Mangaratiba compound. Every empire has a flagship, the asset that makes the abstract concrete. For this family, the clearest example sits on the coast near Rio de Janeiro, in an area called Mangaratiba. The estate has been reported at a value north of $10 million, and the feature list reads less like a home and more like a private resort. There is a helipad, so arrival never depends on a road. There is a private lake on the grounds. There is a full-size football pitch, the obvious centerpiece, allowing the trade itself to be practiced in total seclusion. There is a spa. The property is large enough to host an entire entourage in privacy, walled off from the chaos that follows the name everywhere else. Understand what a compound like this represents inside the thesis. It is not merely a trophy. A walled estate with its own pitch, its own water, and its own aircraft access is a fortress of control, the physical version of what NR Sports does on paper. It removes dependence. It buys distance from the public that built the fortune. And in real estate terms, prime coastal land near Rio is exactly the kind of hard asset that holds value while a playing career does not. The mansion is the thesis poured into concrete and grass. The secondary holdings. The portfolio does not end at the water's edge near Rio. In 2024, reports placed the family inside one of the most exclusive addresses on Earth, a penthouse in Dubai within the Bugatti residences. A tower designed in partnership with the legendary car maker, with the unit reported at roughly $54 million. Pair that with the role of tourism ambassador for Dubai, and you see the pattern again. The presence is not just personal indulgence, it is positioning inside a city built on global capital, attention, and tax-friendly wealth. Beyond the Gulf, the family has held luxury property in Paris, a legacy of the years at Paris Saint-Germain, and in Barcelona, from the era at the Camp Nou. These are not only residences. They are appreciating assets in three of the most liquid luxury markets in the world: Rio, Paris, with Dubai now anchoring the most aggressive position of all. A salary buys cars. A strategy buys deeds in cities where the wealthy always want to be. Therefore, even the houses are quietly doing financial work while the family sleeps. The equity and image layer. Now we reach the layer that separates the rich from the genuinely wealthy, the part where you stop owning things and start owning the means of making money itself. The family did not stop at managing one athlete's brand. NR Sports expanded into representing and developing other Brazilian footballers, which means the household is no longer betting on a single career. It is taking a position in the broader pipeline of Brazilian talent, the most valuable export the country's football factory produces. If you are getting value from this breakdown of how income becomes ownership, this is the moment to subscribe, because the channel covers exactly this, the move from icon to owner, every week. Now, let us keep stacking the layers. Beyond the agency, the family moved into venture capital. Reports tie the star to Insta Capital, a Brazilian investment fund focused on technology, finance, and consumer startups, the kind of vehicle that turns a famous name into early equity in companies that have nothing to do with sport. There is a reported stake in Loud, one of the largest esports and gaming organizations in Brazil and Latin America, a direct bet on the explosive intersection of gaming, content, and youth culture. There has even been an investment reported in Triton Submarines, a maker of deep-sea exploration vehicles. Read that list again. Football talent, technology startups, esports, deep-sea engineering. That is not a fan buying souvenirs of his own fame. That is a family diversifying out of the body and into the balance sheet. And the social media engine sits underneath all of it. With a following reported around 220 to 230 million on Instagram alone, a single sponsored post has been reported to command as much as $500,000. That audience is itself an owned asset, a private broadcast network the family can monetize at will, independent of any club, any league, any contract. The legs may age, the channel does not. The brand businesses. On top of the holdings sit the operating businesses built directly on the name. The cornerstone is the endorsement empire, anchored by a contract with Puma signed in 2020, reported at around $29 to $30 million per year, and described at the time as one of the largest individual sponsorships in the history of sport, eclipsing deals held by some of his most famous rivals. Around that sit partnerships with brands like Red Bull, Beats by Dre, and Gillette, plus product lines extending into apparel and fragrance, ventures that carry the family name rather than simply renting it to someone else's logo. The distinction matters. There is a difference between a celebrity who appears in an advertisement and a family that builds products it controls. The first is a paid actor. The second is a manufacturer. The Da Silva Santos operation has spent 2 decades drifting steadily from the first category into the second, using global fame as the marketing budget for businesses the household actually owns. Therefore, the brand is not just decorating the fortune, the brand is generating it. The legacy lever. Now comes the part that reframes everything, and it leads straight back to where the story started, to Jardim Gloria in Praia Grande. In the very neighborhood where the family once struggled, they built the Instituto Projeto Neymar Jr., a sprawling social and educational complex constructed on a site of 8,400 square meters, on land that once held the old neighborhood football club. The municipality reportedly ceded the ground for 30 years, renewable for 30 more. What sits on that land is not a token gesture. It is a heated, covered, 25-meter swimming pool, a full-size synthetic football pitch with official dimensions, a multi-sport court and a beach volleyball court, a library, a computer lab, a cinema, an auditorium, a medical and physiotherapy wing, and a kitchen serving daily meals. The institute has the capacity to serve around 3,000 children and teenagers between the ages of 7 and 17, and through their families it reaches a community of roughly 10,000 to 12,000 people. It even runs vocational courses aimed at the parents, not only the children. This is the legacy lever, and it should not be mistaken for charity in the ordinary sense. Building permanent educational infrastructure on a long-term land concession in the exact neighborhood that produced the fortune is wealth architecture. It converts capital into the one thing money usually cannot buy, which is a multiplied future, thousands of children given a structure the family never had, in a community that is overwhelmingly poor and overwhelmingly black, in a country where that combination has historically been locked out of opportunity entirely. The father who started with a napkin built, decades later, a campus. That is the compounding made human. The life now. The Saudi chapter is the clearest proof of the strategy in its final form. When Al Hilal came calling in 2023 with a deal reported around $98 million and an annual package reported near 160 million euros, the football world treated it as a curiosity, a star past his peak taking the money. But read it through the family lens and it is something colder and smarter. It was a deliberate act of capital accumulation, an enormous late-career cash injection funneled straight into a structure already built to absorb and multiply it. The legs were slowing. The machine was not. Every check from the Gulf became fuel for the agency, the fund, the property, and the institute back home. So where does the empire stand today? In 2025, he came home, returning to Santos, the club where the napkin was signed, closing the loop almost poetically. The estimates of the total family fortune vary widely depending on what the analysts include, ranging from roughly $250 million at the conservative end to as much as $450 million when the businesses, the property, and the brand are all counted. That spread itself is the point. A salary can be measured to the dollar. An ownership empire is harder to count because so much of it is equity, image, and land rather than a paycheck. Now, in his mid-30s, the man at the center of it is, by his own admission, in the final stretch of his playing days. But the family enterprise was built precisely so that the final whistle would not be the end of the income. The agency keeps running, the fund keeps investing, the institute keeps serving, the houses keep appreciating. The machine, by design, no longer depends on the legs that started it. The synthesis. So, return to where we opened. The Dubai penthouse reported at more than $50 million. The Mangaratiba estate with the helipad, the private lake, and the football pitch. The agency founded when he was a teenager. The investment fund, and the napkin, the humble origin of all of it. Lay those side by side and the title finally pays off, but not in the way you might expect. Because the real ownership here is not a city or an island or a stretch of beachfront. However valuable those holdings are, the real ownership is the machine itself. This family owns the image rights to one of the most recognized faces on the planet. It owns the company that monetizes that face. It owns equity in the next generation of Brazilian talent, in technology, in gaming. It owns deeds in Rio, Paris, Barcelona, and Dubai. And it owns a permanent foothold in the neighborhood that made it, a campus serving thousands of children who look like the boy who once signed on a napkin. That is what it means to own a territory in the modern sense. Not just land, access, capital, attention, and a deed to your own future. Fame gave them the spotlight. Ownership is what they did with it. Now I want to hear from you. and I want you to be specific. Tell me in the comments which of these moves you respect the most. The decision to found a family company before the fame ever arrived. The choice to keep the image rights in-house instead of handing them to a club. The diversification into technology and gaming. Or the institute built on 8,400 square meters in the same poor neighborhood where the whole thing started. Pick one and tell me why. And if this is the kind of story you want more of, the move from icon to owner told through real numbers and real assets, subscribe and turn on notifications. Next week we open the books on another black fortune the mainstream coverage keeps getting wrong.